when you really do connect into those little energy pockets without a board, like just yourself in the wave, you really do feel so connected and locked into this energy. I love all forms of like surfing because, it's like just in general, we're just humans literally getting in harmony with some natural force that is passing by and like riding it and enjoying it. But yeah, there's just something when you strip it all the way down to body surfing. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but who knows? Maybe someday in the future I could surf Mavericks and before I had never even imagined it. I'm just so curious, like what is my full potential? And I don't feel like I've really reached that yet.
Katie McConnell is a competitive body surfer that I actually met when I joined my brother-in-law at the World Body Surfing Championships in Oceanside. The takeaway for me after a weekend of competitive body surfing is that it's super fun. There is a rad group of women that are competing, and it is exhausting. You have to be in very good shape. One of the women that I met is named Katie McConnell. She actually is also a friend of Jackie George, and I started following her on social media and watched as she started surfing bigger and bigger waves. She also body surfs big waves, and I thought it would be cool to hear her story and talk about how she transitioned from being a body surfer to a big wave surfer and what that looks like. So we checked in. She told me all about it, and I hope you enjoy the conversation.
How's Costa Rica?
It's awesome. Yeah, we're in the kind of getting towards the end of the dry season, and so it's like super sunny and nice, and the waves have been pretty small lately, which is good for where I live. I live in like near Dominical, so it's all beach breaks. So I actually like small waves are better. It's more fun. I surfed this morning and it was a really small swell, but the waves were like shoulder to head high and really playful and rippable, and it was fun. So yeah, where are you right now?
I'm at my parents' house in Encinitas. So
awesome. But yeah. That's not where you live these days.
No, I'm renting a room over in Maui. And yeah, I just came over. I'm hoping to try and do a little road trip up to Santa Cruz right now. See some friends and maybe do some fun projects together. We'll see.
Projects meaning like big wave things or
not like big in terms of size, but hopefully big in terms of lots of surfing. So that would be rad. I'm trying to I don't know, make surfing more sustainable in my life because I still work a full-time job plus side hustles. And I've always joked with friends like, maybe it's tough for me to get like a sponsor because I'm like a terrible marketer because it's like, this is a great product. I love this product, but don't buy it. Don't buy anything. Like, I don't know if more consumerism is really what the planet and people need right now. So I would like to contribute to surfing more through like art and culture. And before I even really surfed, my auntie in the like Hawaiian sense, auntie used to take me to La Paloma to see surf movies. And it was always like the coolest. So I've never really like filmed too much before, but we're just going to go mess around and pilot and kind of see what comes up. Something that like makes people feel connected to themselves and nature. So we'll just see.
Cool. Well, let's talk about you and getting into surfing. Where did you grow up and what was your first introduction into riding waves?
I grew up in Encinitas, California, which is it used to be kind of a sleepy little town north of San Diego. Just it's kind of right below Carlsbad and Oceanside and in between Solana Beach and Del Mar. And it's got all these, I call it the tiny wave capital of the world because it's got all of these little beach breaks and little reef breaks. And I grew up kind of going to the beach with my grandma, who would pick me up from kindergarten because my parents were working. And she would just plop down under this one palm tree that's still at Moonlight Beach, and I would just frolic around. So I didn't actually really start surfing until high school. And once I did, like so many of us, just got hooked, and it was such like a positive cycle of, especially being like 15 and in that like weird part of your awkward growing up life. It really was so beneficial for my well-being, and I just loved it. I'll never forget like that first wave where you really feel it at Cardiff Reef. I'll never forget it. So, and then it gets kind of like in under your skin, right? And before you know it, you start kind of making little arrangements and movements in your life to surf more, experiment, find more ways to have fun, like, just be in the water more. So that's kind of where it started.
Did you ever compete at surfing? Like, were you on like the high school surf team?
No. Oh God, no. I was learning how to surf then. My high school had surf PE, so thanks to my parents for waking up early and like dropping me off there at like 7 a.m. every single day. But I was such a beginner kook, I was just out there sending it, flailing around. And I didn't start competing until I became a California state lifeguard, and like while I was in college, and I started competing in body surfing at the Oceanside Worlds that we had such a good time in a couple years ago. Actually, your trophy, I think, is still at my mom's house here.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, Katie and I at first met in Oceanside in a body surfing contest. And for me, I had never I surf without a leash a lot. So I body surf to go get my board. And then obviously like swimming and just like body surfing, but I never really like considered body surfing like something that I did. Like, I didn't own a pair of swim fins, and my brother-in-law, who is a collegiate water polo player and loves to body surf, he's a really good body surfer, he was telling me about this contest, and he was like, we're putting a team together, and we need a woman on the team, and you got to come and do this. And I had just moved back to California after living in Central America for a long time, and so I was like interested in kind of like forming community and like connecting with family more, and I was like, heck yeah, like I'll go do this thing. But I had no idea what I was doing. And like, I didn't even know how they like scored body surfing or whatever. I like bought fins at the contest. Like I went to the booth and like purchased swim fins. But I remember like not having any idea what to expect and just trying to like, I hope I advance out of a heat. Like that would be like a win for me. And I remember seeing you and I was like, holy shit, like this girl is like so legit. And you were like, I know Jackie George. And I was like, no way, yeah. Small world.
Yes, I know. It's amazing how that, first of all, that's so amazing. I didn't know that you actually just got fins at the comp. That is hilarious and so cool. I mean, and that just, I think, is a testament to how rad body surfing and like body surfing culture is, because it is so just like, come on, like, let's have a great time. And, it's growing now. They have like the world tour, and they have a lot of people have a vision of body surfing being in the Olympics one day. And so people are like forming national teams. Like the greatest example, I think, is El Salvador has for many years had the most dedicated and disciplined body surf team. Like for, that shows up to all the events, and they, they're amazing. And yes, and it's such a small world and such a tight-knit community just of ocean lovers in general, and just surfers of all different types.
Yeah, body surfing is an incredible workout. Like, just that day it was like pretty big, and I think that was the only reason why I did as well as I did, was because like I know how to compete as a competitive surfer for a long time, and I just like was able to pick off like bigger waves and like ride them far, even though like I don't really have all the like spins and moves and stuff that you do. But I was blown away by how exhausting it is to surf a 15-minute body surfing heat. Like you must have been in incredible shape in doing that.
I don't know. Especially at the Oceanside Worlds Comp, I'm always so exhausted after a heat there. And I think that place in particular, whether you're on the south side or especially the north side, if you take a left, if there is any south in the water, the current just like rips you away up towards San Clemente, and it's a lot of work. I think people kind of underestimate body surfing, but it's so much cardio. Like you're literally swimming in the water, like kicking. It's like the full gamut of all of the muscle groups. So, but I love it too because I mean, like it's great training. It's pretty much low impact in case you're like unless you're like sending it on giant closeouts onto dry sand like the wedge people are. But you just get so in tune with the flow and you get comfortable being underwater. Like you kind of just like, it's just so I find it to be a very relaxed way to enjoy the ocean. And yeah, I think at that point too, back in the day, like I was lifeguarding. I mean, I don't know if was so athletic, but I just started trying to explore like, well, if I really put my mind to something, what can I do out here? Because I think I started off in surfing with just like under the auspices of like, I am the biggest kook in the world. I suck. Like everyone around me like is way better. I started super late. Like I'm not cool. And but then I was like, well, what happens if I actually try a little bit? Kind of like what you were saying, like since you had experience competing, you were like, well, what if I apply myself to this a little bit and see what happens? And you went so far. Like I think you got like second, right?
I got second place. The only person who beat me was you.
Yeah, I think you beat me.
No, you won.
I think I got third. I don't remember.
No, you got first. I know you probably do all. You got first, and I got second. And I feel like there were like girls from like Brazil and Hawaii that were like looking at me like the random surfer wearing a wetsuit. Everybody else was just in a bathing suit. I was in a wetsuit because I get cold, and I felt like such a kook. And somehow I got second, and I was blown away. But like again, I felt like just a poser that jumped into the thing. But one thing that I like about body surfing is I feel like when we're not talking about competing obviously like you're performing for the judges, but I feel like it's surfing to me, especially as a woman in the water, like I feel like people's eyes are on me, and like there's some element of like I have to show that I belong and that I'm good and whatever. And I feel like body surfing, it really is just at root like you in the ocean, because like you're not like doing big radical turns and throwing spray. It's like really just like it's like surfing at its root of just like getting into that little pocket and seeing how far you can get pushed. Do you feel that way?
Definitely. And I think there's, especially at waves like at Point Panic, which are so well lined up and like they're like God's gift to body surfers. When you really do connect into those little energy pockets without a board, like just yourself in the wave, you really do feel so connected and locked into this energy. And I think it's the coolest. It's so great. I love all forms of like surfing because it's like just in general we're just humans literally getting in harmony with some natural force that is passing by and like riding it and enjoying it. But but yeah, there's just something when you strip it all the way down to body surfing. And like the real masters, I mean, I cannot even believe this clip of Dave Rastovich body surfing with no fins on this tiny wave. It's just like so telling, of how I don't know, it's just a beautiful representation that humans can be in harmony with themselves and nature, like we need more of that, I think.
So going back to your story, so high school, surf PE, and then in college you got into lifeguarding and started competing in body surfing, and then what happened?
Let's see, and then what happened? And honestly, then after college, I did junior guards. After college, I got a job in this remote scientific field station in the northern part of Chilean Patagonia. So I studied marine biology because I surfing, of course, made me fall in love with the ocean. And so marine biology and all of the amazing things going on in the sea, on the sea, around the sea, under the sea, really fascinated me, and to me seemed like a great way to stay like in the water and do something good for the planet and communities and stuff. So I got a job in this remote scientific field station. I was 22. I like sold off all my possessions and I like went down there to live in this place pretty much out in the middle of nowhere. It was a 4-hour boat ride to even arrive, and so I couldn't even bring surfboards with me. I only brought my fins, and so I was able to travel once a month, and I would go out and go surfing. So I would go up to Pichilemu, or I'd go up to Iquique in the north, and I would body surf. And if I could find a board, I would rent it.
That is crazy. What were people thinking of you in that era? Just like this random young 20-year-old girl that would show up at these kind of, crazy waves with just a set of fins and ask to borrow a board.
I think they thought it was pretty hilarious because in Chile it's less like this these days. But especially then, and even now up in Iquique, I'd still stick out kind of like a sore thumb. And so but especially in Iquique, like I've gone back there almost every single year, and when I got there, it's like a slab land, right? Like if you imagine the North Shore, the 7-mile miracle condensed into 2 miles, and it's all slabs, that's Iquique. And because of many factors, there is people surf there a lot, but I would say that bodyboarding and body surfing is probably more popular than surfing in that town. And so I have some friends who I made through body surfing, and we're like it's just like the tightest knit little crew to like hang out with. So I mean, these days Iquique has experienced some like shifts in terms of like just the social economical world changing and influencing it and stuff. And so I go there and like my friends are like, just stay with us, But yeah, it's freaking rad. Those were such good times, and it was something that really connected me to other ways of viewing the world and living in the world and experiencing the world, through the eyes of local people. Like, it's amazing. Like, imagine, like, we come from such different backgrounds, and we have, like, the most loving friendships because of surfing. Like, it's pretty sick. And
like it sounds like you were like charging slabs as a body surfer, and like what was that like? Like, was that a scary thing? Like, to me it sounds really scary. Like, I'm good with body surfing, you know, head high waves at Oceanside Pier, but no part of me wants to drop in on a slab without a surfboard. So did you feel that way, or you were just fearless in the ocean since day one?
no, I definitely get scared. Even to this day, I definitely get very like cautious and kind of scared sometimes. It's always kind of like, you know, to me, I like to explore. When I'm scared, it's something that I try to like look at and be like, okay, is there a way around this? You know, like what's the goal here? Like look inside, what do I really want to do? But honest, like plain and simple, I always felt like I look up to people like you that can charge these slabs on a board, because I think body surfing them is like infinitely more easy, because I've kind of come from longboarding. And so the idea, like, I like big boards, and I cannot lie, because for me they're easy to paddle, like got a lot of space, you know. And so to take a small board and try and like get those really short bursts to get up onto my feet and like get into the wave without like that nice roll in, you know, is a huge challenge. And then and a technical challenge. I mean, once you're up and going and you're locked into the slab, then it's like great. But for me, it's always been way more difficult to actually like catch them in a safe way, especially at these waves of consequence, you know, just like imagining that there's a super like shallow rock right there that you could get very slammed on. So body surfing, you know, you just slide right in. And if the wave closes out, you know, you get so good at just kind of like diving through, like rolling around, staying oriented. To me, it kind of reminds, I don't do a ton of capoeira, but I have always wanted to, because it seems like that very like artful dancing, avoiding like acrobatic sort of way to just like navigate those types of waves.
That's so interesting. I mean, I guess it ultimately comes down to whatever you're used to, because for me, like having the sharp rail of the board makes it feel easier to like take a drop where you can kind of stick the rail in, where when I'm body surfing and dropping into like a hollow wave, I feel like I just fall to the bottom because I don't have a rail to like get in there. So I guess it's just whatever technique you learn and feel most comfortable with.
For sure. And I'm like, dang, I should go down there and hang out with you.
To follow
do it.
Well, so how did you, I mean, what I ultimately want to get to is talk about like your big wave surfing exploits. Do you identify as a big wave surfer, and how did you get to riding giant waves on a surfboard?
How do I identify it is a huge question. But I don't know. I try to not like put myself like in any little box or anything, because I'm always changing and evolving still. And but recently, you're right, I have been super like hyper focused on surfing big waves, and that came about out of like another just like curious kind of experiment, and also just really just driven for a want to be in the water as much as possible. So after Chile, I had been doing all of this work in science and doing all of these biogeographical surveys throughout Patagonia. And as time went by and I'm like reading the scientific literature coming out, I'm realizing that the field was kind of advancing without me, and I wanted to stay up to date. So I went back to grad school, and I was living in Oregon, and a lot of my best friends were living in Humboldt. And so I was like driving down there all the time, and I was like dating a guy there. And in Humboldt, you know, it doesn't get like huge because it eventually just maxes out and gets like too stormy and gnarly. But for me, it was like huge and scary and heavy and big. And I would be stuck on the beach watching all my friends surfing and having a good time. And I kind of figured, well, you better just figure it out how to navigate, and, if they can do it, so can you, there's definitely a way. And so my boyfriend at the time, Matt Ender, lent me his 9.2 Linden to paddle around. And I remember there was this day where we went out at this wave and it was like really stormy, but it felt good to me because I had been riding longboards like this 9.1, so a 9.2 was like excellent. And I could like dodge sets and like feel safe and start to kind of look around, figure things out, like read the patterns in the water and stuff. And then all of a sudden, like the wind switched and it got kind of glassy and like a little sunbeam came out. And I caught this like crazy, like wedgie peak. And for me, it was the biggest wave I had ever surfed yet. And I remember the drop and kicking out and the whole ride. And it was super fun. And I was like, oh, if I did that, I wonder if I could catch a little bit bigger one. And so that's how everything progressed. And it just was like, I was having a ton of fun. I just wanted to be in the water all the time. And I was just curious, like, while I surfed that, what if I could surf something a little bigger? And so, yeah, here we are. That took me to Nelscott Reef was the first real big surf I ever saw. And I didn't catch a wave this one day. But then I went back and I started catching some out there. And it was pretty funny because I'd get out there and these people were like, what? There's a girl out here. Like, look at this girl. And so they're like taking photos. And nobody had ever taken photos of me surfing. It was like fully something not on my radar. And so I started getting some like a little bit of momentum. And I went to Mavericks. And I started thinking, well, by this point, it was the pandemic and I was jobless. I wasn't eligible for unemployment. I was just teaching surf lessons. And I was like, well, I'm just going to see what happens when I put surfing first in my life, which is something I've always wanted to do. I always had rushed through all of my biology work and coding or teaching grading things, I'd always rushed through it all to go surf. And I figured, well, seems like deep in my heart, what I really love and want to do and seem to be kind of okay at right now is surfing, and especially like somehow putting myself in the position to catch big waves. And people are stoked on it. It inspires people. And I was like, maybe it is an okay thing to do. Like, it's not entirely selfish. Like, I can do this and it does give back in some ways. And so, yeah, so I've just kept going and it's been awesome. It has not been easy, but I still am like exploring what am I personally capable of, both in the water and what I can give back, and like make it something that is not about me. It's like I went through some things like in the last couple years, and many people say this and we talk about this often, but I had this kind of more of an awakening where I felt it more of like, wow, when my life is done, I take nothing with me at all. And I was like, well, that is so awesome, because now I can just make my life all about what I want to leave behind. And what more of a creative and fun adventure than to make it a gift for someone else and future, generations.
Well, I guess my question then is, like, tying that into what you're doing now, like, what do you consider that gift to be, in the sense of like what you're, I mean, I was just like browsing your Instagram again, and like you were nominated in, was it 2022 for like biggest female paddle wave, and then you won just now, right, at Jaws. And
Yeah.
so like in doing that, of course, like surfing is such a fleeting thing. It's like you're not actually like making anything. It's an experience that you have, and maybe there's a photo, but like how do you see those achievements being gifts to leave behind?
That's a good question, and I feel like it's I don't know, I always want to do more, and so I'm trying to figure out ways to do things more concrete. But at least, and I would like, for example, like a dream of mine is to have some sort of like nonprofit or something like that where I can help, you know, surfers travel and just show up for contests, or, you know, just I would love to be able to just sponsor people. But it's like, even for now, I can use my skills to help others. Like sometimes I do some grant writing, or I do tons of reading and writing because of my time in science. So I can use that to nominate people for small grants, or to advocate for the environment, or, or communities. So pretty much in everything I do, before I make a decision, I try to just weigh everything against my ethical frameworks. And but yeah, and through surfing, especially now, like when I first kind of started, I felt like, oh, I just want to surf. Like I don't want to make any statements. Like I just want it to be about the surfing. But as I go on and I am starting to enter these new spaces, I am finding that being a woman in the space is a very different experience, and it's a very challenging experience. Like I know men and women have their, we all have our challenges, and everybody has challenges based on, who they are and things they can't change about themselves, because our society loves to discriminate. But I think, I don't know, like recently I've started to feel like just by trying to perform my best and catch the best wave possible and do it with style, I don't know, I think that has been helping open doors for, the next generation of women to, come up and be able to occupy this space, hopefully, and they won't have to experience all the same challenges I did.
So what I hear you saying is that just by doing it, you can show that it can be done. And the more women, like when you first paddled out at Nell Scott Reef and they were like, whoa, it's a girl, and it was this like weird thing, that the more women continue showing up in those spaces, then it just becomes more normal. And then there's not that feeling of like them reacting in surprise and making someone feel like they don't belong. Is that what you mean?
For sure. And for example, we know there's studies from higher education about how when there is diversity in representation, like at a mentorship level, there is a greater chance that students will make it through college if they have a mentor or somebody who they feel like that represents them in a way. And I think it's the same thing of how, like when I was in college and I was, in Santa Cruz, just surfing like indicators and Pleasure Point and stuff. And Savannah Shaughnessy became the second woman ever to surf Mavericks. And I saw the Surfline article about it and the photos, and I saw her and I saw those waves. And I'll never forget looking at that and thinking like, because Savannah was we had some classes together at the same time. And I was like, looking at that and I was like, huh, you know, maybe I could do that too. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but who knows? Maybe someday in the future I could surf Mavericks and before I had never even imagined it, never even considered it as a possibility.
So when you know, winning that award at Jaws, like, is that something that you're going out and setting to do? I mean, in hearing your story, a lot of it sounds like it was kind of like, well, I was just in Chile and I couldn't bring a surfboard, so I had my swim fin, so I ended up surfing these slabs, and then I was just in Humboldt with these boys, and like they were surfing and my boyfriend was surfing, so I was like, well, I want to have fun, so I'm going to go surf. And now I'm curious, like, how far could I go? So it feels almost like you're just sort of along for the ride, and like however the future unfolds. And how much is it that, and you were just out at Jaws and it just so happened that you paddled into the biggest wave, and how much are you actually going, I want to paddle into the biggest wave and these are the things I need to do that?
It's a blend, I think, because I realized, especially after I competed in the Red Bull Magnitude, I realized, because I never considered myself to be very competitive, but I discovered this super competitive side of myself. And I also realized that competitiveness runs a risk of bringing out some dark sides of myself that I don't think are the most, don't represent my best self. But there are ways of channeling competitiveness into something healthy that can, push progression and performance and all of these awesome things, like in pushing the boundaries of like what's possible, right? So, because it's so cool, I have there are people who are helping me along the way, and especially now Finisterre is helping me too and supporting me.
And for those that don't know, like, I don't even know, what is Finisterre? I saw the logo on your board, but like, is that a wetsuit company? I don't even know what Finisterre is.
Oh yeah, Finisterre, they're awesome. The shorthand version is, they've been around for a while, and I kind of like to describe them to people who haven't heard of them as kind of like like the Patagonia of the UK. So in philosophy and in like surfing and stuff, they're kind of similar to Patagonia in that they make really, really high quality surfing and clothing that are like the most ethical and clean and sustainable like materials and construction you can pretty much find. And their platform has a lot of storytelling and like activism wrapped into it. So they're really out to make a positive impact to make the world like more equitable and fair for humans and the environment. So they're cool. And they started like in the UK, and so they're doing so well over there that they're just starting to expand to North America. So like within the last year. So I think that's why a lot of people over here haven't heard of them yet.
Awesome.
As much, every little bit adds up in terms of like fuel in the tank, But for the most part, I'm very much supporting myself. And so at first, I thought one of the first big wave contests I ever participated in was the Red Bull Magnitude, which was this women's competition, a virtual style in Hawaii. And so basically that means that across the season you get as many clips as you can, and then you submit your 3 best and biggest waves for judging at the end. Well, my first year, I got 3rd place and was Rookie of the Year. And I was like, wow, I did not expect that. And I won like a couple grand or something like that. But I was like, well, to me, that was so much money, And I was like, maybe I could support myself by winning contests. and I was like, one of these days I'll get sponsored and I'll be like Justine DuPont. Hasn't happened yet, but so far the contest winnings are what's getting me through. And so as much as I said, there's a balance. Like, I mean, you asked me like, how do I identify? And I'm kind of like, I guess I identify like as a soul surfer, I just want to be like in nature, like talking to the ocean and listening and stuff, and just breathing. But people ask me all the time, what is the most difficult part of big wave surfing? And I say all the land stuff. And so and so through competitions, I see it as a way to maybe increase the opportunity I have to, continue to explore this hilarious experiment that I love so much, and see if I don't know, I'm just so curious, like what is my full potential? And I don't feel like I've really reached that yet. And sometimes I'm like, come on, Katie, like at some point you should probably just be satisfied, right? You don't want to dip your toes in any sort of like greed pool, right? Like that doesn't help anybody. Because I kind of think like in that, maybe it's like a Buddhist way, right? Where it's like, you could just let go of it all. But I'm not quite ready yet. I just want to, I'm still, I'm still checking it out. So the Jaws competition was kind of a dream come true. It was smaller this year, and it was the first time it was a locally led virtual style competition, because the WSL was not able to secure the permits to put on like the big live event as they used to do during the big days of the Big Wave World Tour. But to be recognized for catching the biggest wave at Jaws is amazing, because I love that wave. For me, it's the most difficult wave. And then to me, that wave still was like, it was okay. It was an okay wave, but it wasn't, what I'm really trying to do out there. I want to try and get like a giant North Peak roll into like the huge, like West Bowl cavern and get spit out, like Billy Kemper does. But maybe one day, and yeah, I'm just stoked. And especially too, because at this point, the concept of catching the biggest wave is just another really fun game to play while surfing. And so for me, I love to be out. I've always, nowadays, like I sit out the back and I'm like, always like, my spidey senses are tingling looking for the biggest one, and to see if I can strategically like slip into it,
I have a question around like the community, because we've had a couple other big. Everybody's always kind of a little reluctant to be like, I don't know if I identify as a big wave surfer. Like I've talked to Delia and Bianca, we've had them on the podcast, and something that I consistently ask is like, what is the community like? Because, and usually, well, in both cases of talking to them, they're like, oh, everybody's rad and we're all looking out for each other and supporting each other. And that sounds great. But I also wonder, like, when you're talking about women's big wave surfing, big wave surfers of any gender, it's not easy to make a living. And yet you are doing this thing that is like so dangerous, that requires time and commitment and gear, and so it's not like it's a cheap thing to do. And when I hear you say that the way that you've been able to support yourself has been really through contest winnings, then it makes me think, well, it's got to be somewhat competitive between the other surfers. And I think about like Jaws surfers, I think about like Paige and, even Kayala and these like kind of bigger names. And I know you from the body surfing thing, but I feel like if I hadn't had that like personal connection, like I may not have heard of you. And so I wonder, like, how do those other girls, like, how does Paige, who lives on Maui and like is dedicated to surfing Jaws, like, how does Paige respond when Katie shows up and wins the big wave paddle win? Like, is it just super stoked and we're all pushing the sport together, or does it get to be like we're in the lineup and like, does it get, are you jockeying? Like, what is that community like?
I think it's really variable, just like every community, and I think, as much as at the end of the day, we all know we're on the same team, and we're all good people and can celebrate each other's wins. I think, I'm just saying this now because I wasn't, actively in this space during the times when Keala and Andrea and Bianca and Paige were banding together for equal pay and pushing for equal participation at Mavericks and other places. So, but at least for just speaking for myself at this day and age, I think in some ways there is more we could do to band together and support each other and continue to just do better things and have a great time surfing. I think there definitely is competition, but definitely no animosity. I think in general there's always kind of like drama and this and that, but nothing like personal, right? I think a lot of it comes down just to surfers' frustration with there not being quite as much support as there probably should be for, like you said, an activity that requires an insane amount of the full body, mind, and spirit power to connect with nature at its mightiest. And there's so much opportunity in that. I'm not really sure what the answer is because sometimes I think maybe like money and sponsorship and all of this stuff is something that simply isn't compatible with surfing and big wave surfing. Maybe it just dilutes it too much or like contaminates the pool too much. But in terms of like the community and women and everything, I think we all know we're on the same page. But honestly, we're all working so hard, So I love Paige. I think she's so rad, and I wish we could like hang out more. But it's always like, oh yeah, like I'll see you, but we never do. And I love Bianca. I wish I could get over to Mavericks more and see her. And she's come out to Jaws a couple times this year, and I just always love being in the lineup with her and chatting and just like cracking jokes and stuff. So
yeah, she's hilarious.
Yeah,
well, it wouldn't be a conversation with a big wave surfer if we didn't talk about fear, because I know that everybody experiences fear, and you said earlier in the conversation that you also experience fear, and I think it's important for women, well, for people to hear that, because I think that, like, I know in coaching, amigos and coaching clients, and they're like, oh, you probably never get scared. And it's like, no, I do. I absolutely get scared. And I will say, and even big wave surfers get scared. Everybody has their limit where they get to, and they're like, okay, now I'm scared, or I'm nervous, or I'm cautious, or however you want to call it. So I wonder for you, if you can describe, like, where is that line for you? Where, like, describe the thing that is, like, if you could say, like, the thing that's most frightening to you, like, what is that? Like, and when you are in those situations, like, how do you manage it? What's the self-talk, or what's the strategy that you use to be able to, like, exist in that setting?
That's a big question. And, it's so funny because it is true. People are always like, oh, you probably never get scared, right? Or like, this is just like a tiny wave to you, or whatever, And I think it's kind of funny because the more and more I go on and I hear comments like that, I realize that so many people are under the impression that they're the only ones that get scared, you know? And it's like, I wish we could normalize feel like actually getting in touch with our fear and not trying to suppress it or hide it or think it's, you know, or be under the false impression that like everyone else is so brave and I'm not, you know. It's like we all are humans and we're all experiencing these things. And yeah, you know, it really depends on the day and it depends on the wave. And so, you know, well, I used to teach some surf lessons too, and I used to ask the, you know, whoever I was with to look out and tell me, how big are the waves today? And depending on somebody's, you know, skill and confidence level and the conditions du jour, they would say big or small, right? But it's really like they were 3 feet. And so it's like one person would say big, the next would say small, and, you know, and everywhere in between. It's so relative. And even still, it's relative. Like there's days at Jaws when it's giant and super clean and you feel fine, and you could go back another day and it could be really similar and you feel very different. It's kind of like showing up to a yoga class. You walk in different, every day's different. But for me, when I do experience fear, it's, you know, it's for a variety of reasons. And I think the trend is when I feel like things are either like very much out of my control or very unknown, or if I think I might be a little overstepping my what I like look inside and say are like my abilities of the day, because maybe it's like I could probably do this but I'm not feeling great right now, or it's like, okay, no, this looks way more complicated than I'm prepared for right now, but you know. And so in all of those situations I try to, like, if I want to move past it, it's like if I feel like something's out of my control, if I'm in the ocean and like it seems hectic, if I can find a safe way to just give myself some time and look around and try and understand a little bit more, sometimes that gives me a little bit of a roadmap on how to proceed, right? Same thing if something's super unknown, like, man, the wave is way out to sea, and I don't know what it's going to be like when I get out there, or it looks really big from shore and kind of crazy. I'm always kind of like, if there's a safe way for me to just get a closer look, you know, or just like look at it from a different angle, or just like get out there and be next to the wave, you know, instead of staying on the land, like just to be confident that whatever happens, whether I catch a wave or not, like I can at least get out there and say that I looked at it and got as close as I could. And, you know, hilariously, those often turn out to be the best sessions, the ones where I felt like initially there was like no hope, but I just kind of inched my way closer and I was like, maybe a wave finally called my name and I said, okay. And it was great. Sometimes you just have to be humbled, you know, like, and throw up the white flag because the ocean is bigger, you know? And sometimes it's just kind of like, I learned a lot and I know what I need to do to work on, and I'll be back. So I hope I get and you know, it's always like, I hope I get another chance, you know? It's tough. I think a lot of the reason too why the surfing community can be so aggro sometimes is that we're under the impression that these, you know, no one wave, no swell, no session will ever be exactly like the next. And so we live always with this idea that we only get one chance. And so, which is kind of true. And I think that's sometimes one of the most difficult things, is to feel like you missed a chance. But I go on in life and I realize we actually do get tons of chances. And I like to just see and keep my eyes open and keep going for the next opportunity and to be ready. So yeah, that's kind of how I like to get through fear, because at the end of the day, it's like you have to look inside of yourself and see if it's something that you really want to do. And for me, I've always, at least in these situations and still to this day, when I get afraid in all these kind of situations, I find that deep down inside, I really do love being out there, even if I'm scared. And the love always tends to smooth out the fear and, you know, make some sort of path forward that is, you know, a little lighter and less scary.
I really like what you said about, number one, like normalizing that everybody feels fear, and then also when you talked about the thing that runs through it, because I think that's important too, because I don't know that that's something that people always think about. Like somebody will say, oh, I'm afraid of big waves, and just leave it at that. And I always like to push and go, okay, well, what are you actually afraid of? Like, what are you worried about? And I think a lot of times when you ask that, part of what comes up is the unknown or a lack of control. Because I think that people in their like normal daily lives also prefer the known and having a sense of control. And so it's like, I liked what you said about when I notice I'm feeling that, it's like identifying, like, that is the feeling that I'm having. I'm feeling a lack of control because it's chaotic or it's crazy, or I've never surfed here before. I can't really tell what's happening. And then it's like, if you can identify, like, that's what it is. And it's like, okay, what can I do to regain some sense of control? Or what can I do to gain a sense of understanding, whether it's like talking to someone or finding the lineup or understanding the way the current is working. I know for me in surfing, like, I don't surf big waves like you surf big waves, but like what I consider to be big waves for me, like, I know that I had the same thing. Like, if I'm surfing like my home break or like a break that I totally understand and I know where the channel is, and I know where the lineup is, then I can surf a much bigger wave than if I'm at like some brand new spot that I've like never seen before and no one's out, so I can't like figure out where to sit. And then also I liked what you said about just accepting that it's not a failure if you decide that today's not the day. You know, like there's nothing wrong. Because I think a lot of times then you get shame on top based on like, today's the day, it's the biggest day of the swell, and I'm on my, you know, week-long trip, and if I don't do it now, even though I'm not like feeling up to it, then I'm never going to get this chance again. And it is like a hard thing to deal with, because like, as you said, in some cases that's true, but also there's always going to be another situation. It might not be exactly the same, but there will be another opportunity, and you just have to like let it go.
Let it go. It's true. That was such a great like way to distill all of that, and I wholeheartedly am right there aligned.
So what is next for you? What is the thing that you're like, it sounds like you're going to go work on some projects with some friends in Santa Cruz, but like beyond that, like, is there an event that you're training for? It's like the winter season in North America is coming to an end. Like, what's next?
If I'm lucky and can, you know, if I can pull it off, I'm really excited. I'm always excited to go back to Chile, because now it's Southern Hemisphere winter, like, and you're starting to get your first south swells. I was looking at the Punta Lobos forecast, and yeah, you know, I love Punta Lobos, and I love Pichilemu, I love Chile, and you know, I've seen some of the biggest waves I've ever seen in my life were there, and I can't wait for another chance at that. And even just like their crispy fall first swells are so amazing. And there's even like a barrel section. People are getting like huge barrels off the top of the Morros, like the rocks there. So I would really like to get back to Chile and yeah, I honestly, I just want to clone myself so I can go do all of the things and then have like a annual summit where we all meet up and we just like talk about what we did. Because there's so much that I still want to explore in the world and so many different projects that I would love to, apply myself to, and so many people that I'd like to like band together with, and but one thing at a time, one forecast update at a time.
Awesome.
But yeah, looking forward to Southern Hemisphere winter, and seeing if I can get more involved with some like conservation projects too. So
Sweet. Well, that's all sounds exciting. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time and connecting.
Thanks so much for listening to Second Breakfast, a podcast by Surf with Amigas. If you like what you heard, think of a surf friend who might like it too and send it their way. Give us a follow, rating, or a review on your favorite podcast platform to make sure you won't miss the next episode and help others find us. We are all about community, so please do keep in touch and let us know your thoughts and what you'd like to hear. Find us on Instagram or sign on to surfwithamigas.com for updates and inspiration to explore retreat dates and locations. While you're there, check out our blog and join our newsletter.